Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming by to go ahead and attend my panel. And for those of you here who may be watching it afterwards, hopefully you'll find some usefulness from today's conversation. So my panel today is unlocking true business profitability. Well, entrepreneurs and self-employed creators really need to keep in mind in order to be able to not only do what you love doing, but making sure that it can be sustainable in the long run. I'm happy to answer any questions along the way throughout, so feel free to just go ahead and let me know. And if you may feel inclined, go ahead and message some of your colleagues who might not be waiting in a line right now and have them swing by here in panels 5, just so we can get a little bit more of an audience. But anyway, a little bit about me. Let's see here. So I am an entrepreneur myself. I had opened up Furry Logic Escape Room here within the community, bringing escape room entertainment all across the United States to conventions like Megaplex, and had just recently passed along this event relationship to Twisted Tales. Definitely highly recommend checking them out. I also started my professional career as a certified public accountant, doing audit work for big box companies, helping to make sure that their financial statements were saying the things that they needed to say. And currently, I work for a small business that does fractional CFO and outsourced accounting work for other small businesses. Don't worry, I'll be presenting to everyone that's out here. And again, feel free to ask any questions as you may have along the way. But my work in a company called Norman Professional Services really focuses in on helping small business owners really understand what is working within their business profitably, what are things that might not be strong returns on investment, what are ways that they can get the help and support that they need so they can spend more time doing what it is that they love doing and less time doing the things that they don't love doing, which is an important return on time. Now, a quick disclaimer that I want to share. Although I shared that I was a CPA, I was never a tax-based CPA, and I'm no longer an actively practicing CPA. So none of the information that I'm sharing here is going to be tax advice, and the whole disclaimer of consult a financial professional and lawyer for any specifics that may be relevant for your business or relevant for the locations that you serve will be really important, because there can be different tax legislation for different business operations in different locations. Additionally, I recommend making sure that you consider creating a business entity for the work that it is that you're providing, so that you can protect your own personal assets from what it is that you do as a general business. A sole proprietorship kind of happens automatically, but it can leave yourself with some additional exposure inside liability for your personal assets. As a quick question, I know that we kind of finagled the projection right now. Is the projection readable, or should I switch to a higher font version of this? This is A-okay right now? All right, great. So, I want to be able to get to know a little bit more about the folks that are in the audience. So, out of curiosity, excuse me, do you use, what pronouns do you use?
He, him.
Yeah, so sir, do you have a business right now that you operate, or are you looking to be able to learn a little bit about starting a business?
The second one.
Yeah, no worries. Some things will be really important to keep in mind along the way. How about others within the audience? Would you like to share? Are you, show of hands, are you currently running a business itself, or are you looking to start? So, show of hands, who here is starting, already has started a business, and then who here is looking to get into business pursuits? All right. Well, hopefully some of this information, once again, will be a really good way to calibrate things that you already are doing, or things that you're looking to be able to go ahead and begin. So, I want to clear up a common misconception around profitability as a general concept. There's an important distinction between what is cash flow versus what is profitability. So, what I want to share here is that cash flow is exactly as it's shown. It's the flow of cash in and out of your business. And it's a necessary thing, right? In order to be able to pay for materials or pay for subscriptions or pay for people to help you, you need to get money in the door in order to be able to pay for those. So it's important to think about how our clients and customers paying you for products that you're selling, services that you're offering, or other ways that your organization and business can get money. On the other side is profitability. And what profitability is, I actually split it up in this slide intentionally. It is profitability, the ability of a business to be able to generate more money than the resources that it expends. Your ability for the business to create profit, which for a lot of folks is more cash coming in the door. But sometimes just because cash comes in doesn't mean that a business is operating in a profitable manner. Because there may be a period where you're flush with cash, and then another period where you are just drained of cash, and you're curious, have question marks as to whether or not it truly is a long-term profitable endeavor. So if you think about cash flow as think of it like blood in the human body. You don't want more blood leaking out of the body than it's able to maintain and generate. But if you think about profitability instead about the health of the human body, how efficiently can it use nutrients, resources, and the like to build a healthy, growing body? Does that make sense for folks? Great. So I'm going to spend one slide just on cash flow at a very high level. So cash flow includes collecting money for the things that you sell or the work that you perform. So let's take an example of, say, like an artist who does digital commissions. Don't do work for free. You are allowed to be able to withhold the thing that you are delivering until the customer delivers the final and full payment. Now that may mean that you have policies where along the way people need to pay for a portion of the commission through a payment plan, like maybe 50% up front, another 25% at the sketch phase, and then the final 25% before you're delivered a final unwatermarked image. Or like take another example of a costume maker or a prop maker, right? Being able to create a fursuit costs money, and so you want to make sure that you don't send something out without receiving the full and final payments for the work that you perform. And then the last component that I have here is, it's okay, withhold bit. So the other component, that middle bullet, is make sure that you are staying on top of customers who aren't adhering to the payment plan. And for some, that's give me upfront payment in order to be on my queue. If you've expressed interest, then in order to actually properly hold your spot, you need to properly reserve your particular spot. Come on in. You need to be able to reserve your particular spot inside the queue. Welcome, welcome. We are going over unlocking true profitability for entrepreneurs and self-employed creators. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the right spot, and I encourage you to be able to share the message with others to come join on in as well. We did a quick survey at the very beginning, but for those that had just joined us, raise your hand if you currently have a business operation. And raise your hand if you're interested in learning more about profitability, but might not have a business right now. Great. And this also could be relevant too if you are working for an employer and just have curiosities about, well, how is my individual contribution part of the overall math of company profitability? So let's say you provide like nursing services or something. Why is the big giant medical bill not part of your paycheck kind of thing? So, all right, so I just described that the cash inflow component is really important in staying on top of customers who owe you money, and that there's clear agreement on when that exchange of money should occur is really important. And you will have all the right to withhold that final delivery until after the final payment comes in. But the second half of this slide is the other side of the equation. Make sure that you actually perform and deliver what it is that you commit to delivering when a customer pays you. So there will be cases where, let's use the example, I'll get to your question in a second, let's use the example of a fursuit maker. If you collect like a 50% deposit up front because, well, fur and foam and other materials are expensive and you can't begin the project without that funding. Well, do keep in mind that until you perform the work, absent any non-refundable clauses, that money isn't yet yours. You haven't yet earned it from a true business perspective. Say something happens and a person in alignment with the terms and conditions says, hey, some life circumstances have changed. My mother is incredibly ill. I need to back out of this particular commission. And if you hadn't actually started work because you had a 1.5-year queue, then it's very likely that those dollars are recallable. Think of it, it's a deposit that's holding a spot until work gets performed. And until that work gets performed, it technically isn't yet your money. Another component is just being clear on expectations on when money is expected and when work is expected to be performed. That's just an important clarity of communication along the way. And if you make an error in what it is that you create, then that's technically on you as the service provider. And unless there's been a significant change in what it is that needs to get done, or through the kindness of your clients and customers' hearts to say like, hey, there was an extenuating circumstance that forces me to start the project over because maybe there was rain damage that had affected my materials, my canvas, the fabrics and whatnot. That's technically not on the customer to remedy. And you have to be able to figure out a way to make good on that so that you're still delivering what it is that they paid for. You had a question in the back for a second.
Yes, so just a quick example. We are renovating our house.
Mm-hmm.
So a contractor comes through and they have connections to other people. But they also do a little work themselves. In the beginning you said, collect the money for the product that you deliver.
Mm-hmm.
We are currently in an issue with our contractor because we're withholding money from them because we don't believe they have completed their work to a acceptable level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that? I feel like it's looking at it from the customer side instead of I think it's a little more towards your second point.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it comes down to, well, what was it that was specifically agreed to and where is there an agreement of how that gets measured? And ideally, certainly in a renovation and contractor relationship, there should have been some agreement that said they're going to do X, Y, Z over this particular time frame, acceptable to a certain standard. And being able to get either agreement between the two of you or a third party to go in and investigate it, to be able to say, all right, this is the level that's there, or it wasn't met, becomes really important. Go on.
One quick follow-up to that.
Mm-hmm.
I am a photographer,
Mm-hmm.
and I am looking to start a small photography studio just for
Great.
myself to do this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Going along the lines of collecting the money for the work that I perform,
Mm-hmm.
what's a recommended policy I should create to, let's say I take some photos. Do I charge the client before I give them the final product? Or do I edit everything and then hope that they pay me at the end? Where should the cash, because I have not given them a product yet. If I take the photos and I collect money at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
what's the recommended way to,
Come in.
what's the recommended way to collect this money that I'm owed for a photo shoot?
Sure, so to reframe the question in a broader sense, when should the exchange of cash happen between customer and service or product provider depending on what it is that you do. You want to make sure that you get paid for the work that you're going to perform or have performed, and you don't want the customer to either to feel slighted nor to take advantage of you in that particular case. And of course, unfortunately, the general business answer is, well, it depends. But if you think about it, there are many, many cases where a customer will give money well in advance of the receipt of what it is that they'll take. Great example is ordering something online. There's actually no guarantee that you will actually receive anything that you order online, because there are so many steps along the way that need to be completed long after the exchange of money takes place. So is it a valid business model to require people, in order to secure your services, to retain your services, to pay up front and say, this is the money that I'm willing to spend to be on your queue? Then that is a viable business model. A separate business model could be like, hey, anyone and everyone could go ahead and get on my queue, and then we'll only pay at the time of the final delivery. That also is an approach. Generally, as a business operator, you want to collect money as early in the process as possible and to have great clarity and responsibility and discipline pursuant to that second part to actually follow through on what it is that you are delivering. So in your particular case as an aspiring photographer, I would say that regardless of when you choose to collect money, do not give the final photos until you've received your full compensation. That's the story there. Now, depending on your skill level, your demand, your advertising, your networking, you may command a need to have people pay for the right to be on your queue. Will that be the case right from the get-go? Potentially not, but that is definitely an aspect that I would say is appropriate for many photographers. Like, think about it, a wedding photographer won't just show up at a wedding and take photos and edit them without the bride and her spouse, or the husband and his spouse, or whichever if they're getting married. That is an engagement that people will pay in advance for, because the skill is a particular in-demand skill set, for sure. Now, alternatively, let's say that you're a headshot photographer going to a trade show or a conference, and you set up a booth saying like, hey, I'll go ahead and take headshots. You could see what my work is, and if you want an unwatermarked headshot, you could go ahead and pay me $50 per unwatermarked headshot. That's an example of a person delivering services without an intention of collecting money up front in advance of pretty much the meaningful part of the service. So I hope that you can see that there are a variety of models that can exist and can work for different types of businesses and approaches.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to shift now from cash flow to just general profitability for business as an overall. There are three major parts of profitability. First is direct material and direct labor costs. What it takes in order to actually make or deliver the thing that it is that your business operation is looking to provide. The next is just simply the cost of doing business, of existing as a business that's not related to what it is that you are actually selling. And then the third is cost of client acquisition, which if you are a growing provider out there, then the attraction of new clients and any costs that are related to it are really important. If you haven't yet developed the engine where people themselves are coming to you generating organic demand, you'll need to actually go out there and generate that demand. And sometimes that uses money. So let's go into each of those three sections a little bit more in depth. So first, direct materials and labor costs. This, again, is the stuff that directly goes into your product. Now, this includes the stuff that goes into what it is that you're selling. For some people, they may be resellers of existing products. So you purchase a toy wholesale and then intend on being able to sell that at retail otherwise. The cost that you purchased from the manufacturer is the cost of the thing, right? Like, you couldn't just conjure it out of nowhere. Additionally, if you are making prints of artwork that you've created, going to FedEx or to Office Depot and printing the materials on matte and poster paper, that's costs that go directly into what it is that you're creating. Another example here, if you are in the food or food adjacent businesses, like say that you're sourcing coffee beans from a farmer or from a distributor of coffee beans, the cost of those beans is a necessary component in order for you to be able to sell coffee or tea leaves or whatever it is that you're looking to sell. Make sense? The other component too of direct materials is what's the stuff that goes into the things that you make. So say, as a creator, you have the ability to make things, taking raw materials or inputs and creating something. So for those that are in arts and crafts or costume making, the actual fabrics, materials, the thread, the glue, and other things that go into what it is that you do, that stuff probably wasn't free. It costs money, and so the money of the materials is part of the direct costs as one of the key components of profitability. Say that you're a painter, the actual canvases, the paints that you use, those are the direct inputs of the materials that go into what you create. Say that you're a 3D printer creator, so making toys, models, tools, other things that you can now 3D print with filaments or with resin. That is the materials that goes into the actual stuff that you make. Now, there is one very important category that a lot of people often forget, and that's the value of your time. The value of your time. It is very easy. I actually just saw today that there are many creators who shortchange themselves in terms of their value or worth because they're passionate about what it is that they do. The passion or the joy that comes in it is part of the compensation, the fulfillment that they themselves receive. And it can be unfortunate that when those passionate creators are part of larger engines and ecosystems that are looking to capitalize on that passion, to predatorily take advantage of that passion, then people are left potentially being undercompensated for what it is that they do. But if you yourself are in charge of your own pace, creation, pricing, in terms of your own business operations, then don't treat yourself poorly as a creator. It's very important that you keep in mind all of the things that go into the work that you do. This includes the time spent making the thing, but it also includes managing your queue and the time that it takes to do that. It includes the time that you spend communicating with the people that are purchasing from you. It includes the time to review what it is that you've made and making sure that it's ready for delivery. It's making sure that you spend the time taking it to the mailbox and shipping it. That's time that's spent as well. And when you think about what is the value of your time, a great baseline is just consider minimum wage. Now, granted, you're worth more than that. But if you're stuck going, I don't know what my time is worth, then start where the lowest possible point is, minimum wage. If you were to go out and not do what you do, and instead spend an hour of work elsewhere, it's for sure going to be at least minimum wage. But another way of thinking of it is, if you have an ability to go out there and secure a job elsewhere, whatever that hourly rate or equivalent would be, that should be the number that you should compare against. So if you could go and work in quick service restaurant and get paid $10, $12, $15 an hour depending on your state, if you could go and be an administrative secretary assistant for a business that's local in the area, if you can be a data analyst to be able to churn numbers in a spreadsheet, whatever it is that you know is within your capabilities to perform, whether it's $10, $15, $25, $40 an hour, that should be your comparison point based on what it is that you will be valuing your time. So why is this all important? Well, this is part of being paid a fair market compensation for the things that you provide. So I'm going to go ahead and insert here, this usually is later in the presentation, but is one of the biggest takeaways that I want to share for self-employed creators. The general rule of thumb for pricing what it is that you sell should be 3 to 5 times the value of the costs that go into what it is that you do, which includes not just the stuff, but the value of your time as well. And what that value of the time is either minimum wage or the dollar per hour that you can generate working elsewhere. So let's go through an example where, say you purchase a toy for resale, and that toy costs $5. Well, you should expect to retail that back out at least $15 to $25. But let's say when you pull in all that stuff from wholesale, you do a little extra thing with it, a little extra thing where maybe it's a stuffed animal and you specialize in creating stuffed animal clothing, and you want to create a little clothing line to customize for those stuffed animals. Well, guess what? Maybe the material of the knitting and crocheting yarn is an additional $1 for the material, and you spend half an hour making that little piece that's there, so that when you put it on the stuffed animal and get ready for it to be sent out, that's the time that you're putting in. Well, if your time, let's say, is $10 per hour, well, guess what? That toy went from costing $5 to actually costing $10 plus a little bit more for materials, right? Because you're adding in the value of your time. Suddenly, the price of that particular item combined and evolved and elevated needs to become $30 to $50, which can feel nerve-wracking a little bit at times, because you may feel like, all right, can the market bear this? And we'll get to that a little bit later. But forgetting to include the input of your time can be a really, really unfortunate speed bump to creating a sustainable business. So let's go ahead and look into that second category now. I know I dropped a very big takeaway, and I'm happy to answer questions a little bit later as we expose a little bit more, but I'll show you why this 3x to 5x actually can be really important. So there's the cost of doing business, the things that aren't related to what it is that you are delivering, but you need to do in order to be able to have a business. Part of this is, let's say that you use equipment in what it is that you deliver. You're not giving the equipment away when you sell the stuff, but it's kind of necessary in order to be able to do what you need to do for people who are plumbers. The vehicle that you drive in to be able to go to people's homes is part of the equipment of the business. The examples that I have here, if you're a digital artist using the computers, the art tablets, the subscriptions to art programs, you're not giving that stuff away as part of the product that you're selling, which is digital art, but you're certainly using it. It's necessary in order for you to have business operations. That's the internal equipment that's there. I'll use the 3D printing business example again. Using the 3D printer, the laser engraver, the sewing machines for craftspeople, that's really necessary for you to be able to do what you do. The other examples there, just the general art supplies for those that perform traditional art, and for those that are photographers. We had a couple of photographers in here earlier also as well during the panel. The cameras themselves, these cameras over here, aren't going to go to the customer, but the end product certainly does. So this equipment becomes necessary and important, and is a cost of internal business operations. But then it also includes the cost of being able to be at the places where you sell your things. So for a lot of us who are vendors at conventions or provide services at different events, the cost of actually traveling to places and staying at the places, travel, lodging, meals, all of that's necessary to be able to be here in Orlando, Florida, or to be able to travel to whatever other events that are out there. And so that's an important cost to keep in mind, but it's not built into the pricing of the direct costs of what you do. If you have a booth, like getting a booth set up that is welcoming and attracts people in there is kind of a part of marketing and advertising, right? Shipping costs, if you need to ship merchandise or materials to different locations or shipping an end product to a customer, those are costs that are associated with that. And this includes venue receiving fees. A lot of people end up forgetting that that can be something that can pop up and surprise folks, is that a local FedEx can charge for receiving an item on behalf of a business. But that's not all. There's even more costs to doing business. There's the cost of just having a business in good standing. If you create your own entity, there's going to likely be a state-required annual registration, or biannual, or however frequent it may come up. But it is something that you do need to keep in mind, because some states will require this in order to be able to do business. Registered agent fees, this may also be something that may come up for a business to be able to sell in a particular location. What a registered agent is just an address where people can provide summons for lawsuits, essentially, or other important business communications. And some states will require a person in that state in order for you to be able to do business in that state. And there are lots of national organizations that's their business, is to be that person. Another example is sales licenses. Sales licenses, the rights to be able to sell in that state. It will change locality to locality. It might even have a city-specific version of it too. And lastly, finally, taxes. Whether it be sales tax, there are some states that have a franchise tax, which again is just simply the ability to sell in that particular state. It's different from the sales tax perspective, which is the ability to run transactions. Income tax, some states will require you to report the money that you make in that particular state if you work in that state. And then, of course, there's the costs related to receiving and hopefully keeping that money. Like I said earlier, there's the taxes, that's a portion of it. There's business bank and credit card account fees. So if you have a separate entity, you're going to want to have the dollars that are moving in and out, the transactions that are occurring with that entity to be separate from your personal finances. That is an act that is a phenomenon called commingling that business owners will want to avoid. Additionally, there's payment processing fees. If you are doing any business outside of just cash transactions, there's a high likelihood that you're using a service that will have a payment processor fee associated with it. Does anyone here use Square or Stripe? Yeah. So you may be familiar with the term that says, we'll take out 2.9% plus 30 cents out of every transaction. That is how they make money. To be the ones to communicate with the credit card companies to say, hey, this person's supposed to get $30, but before we give them the $30, because we're doing this conversation right now, I'm gonna go ahead and take 39 cents, all right? So I'll just take care of sending $29 and 61 cents to the person, but you give me $30, right? That's how Square works. And then there's also accounting system subscription fees, keeping track of all those dollars, whether you're using QuickBooks or Xero or FreshBooks. There are a variety of platforms that are out there that can help keep cash that's coming in and out of the organization into their correct buckets so that you can report things properly to your CPA for tax purposes and ultimately to the IRS and to the tax authorities. So there's a lot more than just the cost of what goes into the things that you use. And more, there's more. So, before I hop into the third option here, I do want to go over a sample example. So, apologies if some of this may be a little difficult to read, but here's an example of a regular sale and then things that automatically claw away at those dollars. So let's use 100% of a sale. Like that's what a customer gives you. And you say, hey, this is $10. Are you paying by credit? Great, go ahead and tap here. Well, the thing that you sold for $10, if we go through the example, the guideline of going 3x to 5x, the total cost will be what it is that you sell. Well, chances are, like that's gonna be somewhere between 20% of the cost to 33% of the cost. So I'm using 30% here as an example. The thing that you sold for $10 probably cost you $3 in materials and time. Sales taxes will vary by location, but let's say, for example, it's 8%. I think here in Orlando it's 6.5%. So take the number and reduce it by 1.5 percentage points. But here, I just use a general rule of thumb of 8% across all locales. And then you've got your payment processor fees, which I round up to 3%. Well, if you think about it right now, anytime that you sell something for $10, you will get to keep $5.90. And that's why it's important to make sure that you're pricing properly and profitably, because already when you consider the things that get put into it or what it costs you to get the things, and then add on top of that taxes and processor fees, it's already going to be quite a bit eaten away. Now, it's not just this. Let's go ahead and roll into what happens to that $5.90. Well, when you collect profit, that's essentially part of your income. Whether you do it as a business or you accept it as your own kind of sole proprietor income on your Schedule C in taxes, the formal talk. So let's take that 59%, that $5.90. Well, you'll have self-employment tax associated with it. So when you work for somebody, there are these things called Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, summarized as FICA. You pay a portion of that, and the employer pays a portion of that. But when you are self-employed, generating this income on your own, you're paying both halves of that, which is 15% total. On top of that, there's regular income tax that can happen. And there are a variety of tax brackets within the US, but let's roll with the assumption that dollars that are earned in this bracket, in this graduated tax system, is 12%. Well, that means you only get to keep 73% of that $5.90 for that $10 sale, which means at the end of the day, this example has a remaining take-home of $4.30 for that thing that you sold for $10. Now, this isn't meant to dissuade you from ever doing business. You got $4.30 more than you did before in exchange for the effort of acquiring things to sell, engaging with customers to go ahead and perform the sale, and being in the places where customers are looking to be able to buy, whether it be in person or online. And this can be a great way for people to be able to make a good living for themselves. So the last category I want to go over is the cost of client acquisition. This is the money that you're spending to be able to attract new customers to come on in. For larger businesses, this could be the cost to expand into a new location, a new store, a new city. For others, this may be online advertising to be able to reach new customers who may peruse a website, a gallery, ads on Google, on YouTube. So this is essentially the marketing costs to your potential customers. And so what could this look like? Well, your website or your portfolio, your gallery, costs related to keeping that up to date and optimized to be able to be found is part of the marketing cost for your cost of client acquisition. Paying someone to create new logos, new graphic designs, new videos, new content to advertise and promote what it is that you sell, that's part of your marketing costs. Investing in those pay-per-click ads on Google or other websites where you could have your banner displayed, that's part of your advertising costs as well. And if you're spending money on print advertising, the person that is doing the filming of video over here had created business cards. right? That printing costs of being able to have those business cards to hand out to people who may be interested in elevated services, or even just spreading them out for at a convention for awareness and visibility. Creation of stickers as potentially an advertising cost is a component of that too. But then there's also the cost of cultivating people who are already aware of who you are and hopefully moving them down the purchasing process so that they eventually become somebody that buys from you. So in this case, this could be money that you that you spend with MailChimp or Constant Contact to be able to create like an email series for people that sign up for your newsletter, and like maybe there's a discount code in there at some point. Another cost of this could be partnering with other creators to be able to generate more sales by referring each other. And you may give a gratitude gift for that in exchange for referrals. Some people kind of have a baseline of 10% of new revenue can be given back as a gift to whoever referred that person over to me. Another option here, I mentioned like the discount code. Costs that are related to creating a discount, meaning the discount itself, is a cost of client acquisition. Say in order to like hook a new person in, you have to like really lowball an item, make it heavily discounted or even potentially offered up for free. And then they love the product so much, they come back for more. Well, that specific initiative of practically giving things away is technically a cost to you as an organization. Because remember, it's not just the stuff that costs money, it's your time that costs money too. And then lastly, having some kind of software or platform, also known as a CRM, to manage tracking people in that life cycle. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management Tool. And a spreadsheet can be a CRM, but there are also platforms out there like Zoho, Go High Level, HubSpot, Salesforce that help people keep track of communications with potential clients. So I mentioned earlier that 3 to 5x your input costs is an important threshold to consider in order to be pricing with future-facing profitability, so that you're not running yourself into potential areas of burnout or debt or worse. But what if it is tough to be able to price in that realm? Well, first is an urging to improve your crafts. Continue doing what you do, price accordingly, and give yourself a timeline of getting to a better pricing model. You don't have to make the switch right away if you happen to be lower than that threshold, or maybe you hadn't considered the value of your time and what an alternative opportunity could be. But we already saw that for every dollar that you sell, a lot of it is already going away. So you want to make sure that you're pricing accordingly. Ask for help from others who are doing what you do. We as a creator community are incredibly supportive of each other. Sure, there's lots of areas where there's potential for competition, and there are absolutely times and spaces where we want to win. But ultimately, as a creator community, I do think that we as a whole uplift and support each other. Great example is I explained earlier at the beginning of my presentation that I am the owner of Furry Logic Escape Room, which has been delivering escape room entertainment all across the United States since 2017. 8 years, almost a whole decade. And yet, although I had strongly held the relationship with Megaplex for many years, even through the pandemic, I had willingly offered up this relationship to Twisted Tales, a local Orlando-based furry-run escape room that is just getting started with getting their feet wet on their own and creating their own gaming experiences. Could have I done a really good job here with my team? Absolutely. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be supporting another small business and their opportunity to showcase what it is they're able to do on their home turf and have the greatest capability of having a really profitable event because some of the costs, the indirect costs that I described earlier, of just being in the place where customers can buy what it is that I have to sell, those costs are much lower for a local organization compared to one that would need to fly down to Orlando. Now granted, I'm still here and I'm doing other things. I'm doing sketches inside the dealer's den as well, and so hopefully I'll be able to recoup some of the costs related to travel here. But I'm super grateful for the opportunity to see a fellow colleague thrive at the same time. Another example here is make sure that you embrace your worth when considering potential stories you tell yourself around pricing. Every year you do a thing, and frankly, every time you do a thing, you're improving, you're learning. Sometimes it feels like there's steps back. Sometimes it feels like there's moments of needed exploration. Sometimes there's moments of needing to take a break. But ultimately, as a creator, as a budding business operator, you are indeed improving, and your compensation should increase accordingly as well. When the business that I work for, the company that I work for, goes in and helps and serves clients, the first thing that we tell them, if they feel like they're experiencing a profitability vice grip, is just try increasing your prices by 10% and seeing what happens. For a lot of people, nothing changes. The customers still buy, and it's suddenly 10% more profit. Additionally, and I was explaining this during the last session that I taught this just last weekend up in Philly, is yes, it can be a tough time right now with prices increasing all over the place. But there's no better time to increase prices than when everyone else is also increasing prices as well, because it becomes expected. Not that that's a good thing, right? That like it adds to the inflationary pressures and whatnot, but if everyone else is doing it and you are not, you are going to get left behind. It's not winning you new business, just staying the same, very likely. Yes, there can be certain fringe circumstances where a buyer or a person interested in purchasing may be priced out because somebody increased their prices, but what is the likelihood that that person is going to turn to you as an alternative versus them just staging and waiting until they know they can afford their preferred provider? So do consider increasing your prices, and it could be a test run too. It's always fine to go back if you feel like it's significantly affected your sales. It is a regular supply and demand curve at the end of the day. As you increase your price, then it is possible that the demand for that particular item may fall. But it's also, like, you won't know until you try. There was a colleague of mine, a coach, who has a lot of experience in the hospitality industry. Actually was a big consultant within and then for Marriott, the big hotel franchise. And the first thing that he would do when he would go in and provide support for a hotel is he raised the price of all nightly stays by 20% for a 40-day period, and then just see what happens. More often than not, no real change. Question in the back. No worries, right? But that's an immediate space where, say that was only going to be for a portion of time, it created the additional cash in necessary for the company to experiment with more and different things. And that experimentation can be more marketing to generate more sales, to generate more demand, which could potentially generate a further increase of prices depending on the supply that you're willing to provide. That experimentation could be experimenting with a new product or service offering, a new thing that you can manufacture, a new thing that you can make, and the time and the space to be able to beta test it and iterate on what it is that you're creating. Additional time to be able to spend more time polishing a visual novel or a game that's getting ready for sale, that if just a little bit more could really create a higher level experience for a buyer. by being able to increase immediate cash flow with an experiment like increasing prices temporarily, it not only gives you that additional capital to experiment, but also potentially can give you that extra confidence about the value of your worth. The last tip that I have here is, when it comes down to it, do the things that you are good at and do the things that you enjoy doing. Do not find yourself feeling like you need to burden with every little thing that the business needs in order to operate from an administrative and tracking perspective, unless you love that kind of stuff. It's okay to be able to find help to do the things that either you're not good at, or to do things that you just yourself don't enjoy doing. Hey there, welcome in. So, it's okay to outsource things like following up with customers, if that's the thing that you're like, oh, I just need to get those emails out. It's okay to outsource keeping track of your accounting. If you're like, man, I really don't want, I just want to know that I'm making more money. I don't want to like be in all of those details. Maybe it's posting on social media because you couldn't be bothered to keep track of all the different platforms that are on there and working with someone to create the unique content for a Blue Sky versus a Facebook versus a YouTube short versus a TikTok, right? Like, some of that stuff can be fun, but if it's not your zone of skill, don't be afraid to find someone else to go and help you. There's a book recommendation that I have for anybody that's looking to be able to grow their business or finding themselves really struggling with all of the little minutia of running a business. And that is Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. Go ahead and go to your public library, see if they have a copy of it. If you've got the Libby app, they probably have it on audiobook. But what Dan Martell shares in the book is your time is valuable, and hopefully I impressed that earlier. But if you were to assign yourself a value to the company, say that if you worked on a fursuit prop, and you're able to sell it for an hour, and you're able to sell that thing for $150, well, guess what? Your value to the company, your business operation, is $150. What Dan says, because even though, like, you should spend your time in the highest value stuff, and you may go like, all right, if I were to pay someone $50 to do a task that would otherwise suck an hour away from my life, is it worth it? Well, yeah, because you could do $150 of value if you freed up something and paid someone $50 to do that, if and only if you are using that time to create value. But what Dan shares in his book, one of the key tenets, is called the buyback formula. If you take your value and divide that number by 4, so in this case, the $150, $37.50, right? If there's something that you hate doing, and you could find someone that you could pay $37.50 or cheaper, then that's the no-brainer moment. Absolutely delegate that out and find that person to go and do the thing that you hate doing or that you're not good at doing, because your time is way more valuable doing the thing that generates $150 per hour of your attention and focus than on the thing that you can find someone for $30 an hour to go ahead and do and be stuck behind a computer focusing on email, right? So, while that can be true at any dollar amount less than $150, the no-brainer buyback formula makes it easy to say, I'm ready to delegate. And if you ever need recommendations on how to handle any of that administrative stuff, I definitely have some people that I can point you to that work on an hourly basis. So, I went through a good amount. I know that some folks had come in a little bit later in the panel. If you want some of the tips that I had delivered throughout this presentation and some more on top of that I did not go over today, this QR code will go to a landing page on the website of the company that I work for that'll include 10 profit-killing mistakes that entrepreneurs almost always face, and how to avoid them. Some of those tenets you heard from me today, but there are going to be a whole bunch more inside that document as well, just in exchange for your name and contact information. You'll also be put on my newsletter as well, where we share lots of entrepreneur and self-employed creator tips and techniques in the area of finance as well. So it's just really important to remember, folks, that a business is an asset at the end of the day. It's something that you're investing in. Money, resources, time. And you're hoping that that asset pays you back. An asset is something that generates resources for you, that improves your livelihood. So remember, a business is an asset that's supposed to work for its owner instead of an owner working their ass off for the business. So I hope that you can remember now to price with profitability in mind, because that's going to be the key to enable you to unlock the business of your dreams and to be able to feed your life and feed your dreams. If you want to be in contact with me, I've got my Blue Sky QR code up there. I'm jdpuppy.fastestfirst.com on Blue Sky. Or if you want to follow me professionally, I do have a LinkedIn where every week I deliver a video with a quick financial tip or a quick entrepreneurial and motivational tip out there every single Monday, called the Mama Clay Monday Minute. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to go ahead and present here on this Friday evening of Megaplex. I know that there are so many people that are waiting in the line out there, so perhaps I could deliver this again in a future time, on a future date, but probably not during this con. If you enjoyed yourselves, please leave feedback as well for the convention, that this was a beneficial panel for you, and hopefully they'll invite me back again in the future when I submit the panel. So thank you all so very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I'm good.
All good. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's 9 o'clock. I think this panel was just till 9. Yeah, so I know we got started a little bit late, but any questions from y'all? Yeah.
Maybe this is just something that I need to like spend more time working on myself. But like I've found that it's a really hard struggle to balance between creating for business and creating for myself. In high school, I would like switch off commissions and personal art every other day, and that was great then, but now I'm facing a disability where I'm not able to work every day, so that's not viable. So it's hard to maintain that motivation to create for business when I have an idea for myself, or to create for myself when I'm stressing about paying for business.
Yeah. So the phenomenon that you share here is like, when do you take care of yourself and have personal fulfillment through the very craft that you're looking to be able to monetize and capitalize on? And that's a pervasive thing across many creators for sure. So you are not alone in this. And because it's also so pervasive, there's a lot of talk and chatter and resources around it. And I will also say that in spite of all that talk, resources, and chatter around it, there actually may not be a solution as well, right? So the important thing here, so I have another book recommendation. I actually just finished this audiobook. It's a book called 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. And he is, in his introduction, he shares that he is a studier of time management, and researched and experimented with and evaluated a gazillion and a half time management techniques. And in his book, he goes so audaciously to say, and none of them work. Right? But here's the bit, here's the thing, and maybe this can potentially resonate with you a little bit. The reality of our world and experience today, and I'm just borrowing from some of what I just heard from Berkman, so I'm still wrestling and grappling with it, is that the phenomenon of the hustle environment where units of time related to productivity as a concept, he posits is only 150 years old. And then prior to that, with the millennia of human existence, that the concept of time output relationship was not as strongly held. And it's a very interesting thing to even bring up because we haven't lived in that alternate environment where the story that he shares is like feudal servants serving a lord, toiling on the plains, and needing to retire back to go to church services, spend time with family, go to supper, sleep, wake up, go back and do the entire thing again. He posits that those people who worked, they got up when the sun was up, they went into the fields when the weather was good, they provided for their lords when they provided, they went home and spent time with their family when it was time to spend time with family. And they didn't really have a concept of, well, if I were to like stand up and watch two chickens fight, that my lord would get angry with me for not working every single moment of the day, right? And that's just sort of a new phenomenon. So, I know, darn capitalism, exactly. It's a combination of psychology and capitalism that he expresses in his book related to that. But what I will say to try to address this particular question issue is, you want to consider elevating your craft and your pricing to a point that is able to support your particular lifestyle, like I've described here before. And that may mean needing to work on a craft that prices at such a premium that it allows you the time and space to be able to breathe and create for yourself. And not every moment needs to be spent creating that high quality and high value deliverable. But you do need times of focus to be able to make that high quality deliverable. A great example is, say that there's an executive woman who left the workforce because she needed to be able to care for her twins and her aging mother, right? And she can't work 60 hours a week anymore at a salaried job that isn't aware of like what it is that she needs to do to be able to take care of herself and her family. So she then transitions and pivots to a consulting job where she only works 20 hours a week, but commands $1 per hour rate, so that she only works 20 hours a week and then can relegate herself to closing the laptop and spending the time that she needs to for her mother and her twins. Right?
Oh my gosh, what did it
Good eye. Glad that you found that. To kind of reiterate, my recommendation is whatever it is that you're creating, create it at a premium and charge it a premium where you could feel comfortable to say one for you and one for me. And just start there to say, all right, when I work on a project for somebody else, I'm also booking a project for myself. It's a technique that's used in corporate world, where if someone books a 30-minute meeting on my calendar, I'll also book a 30-minute meeting for myself on my calendar as well, so that at minimum, I'm only dedicating and committing 50% of my time to other people. And that 50% of my time is for the things that I know I need to work on. And some of that's personal health stuff. Some of that is like projects that I've been putting on the back burner. Some of it is experimentation, but not all of my time. And let me tell you, I've had days where I've had 7 hours straight of external meetings back to back, and I'm thinking, I've got to do something about it because I'm not getting any work done. It's that phenomenon or that concept of one for you, one for me, that could be a potential to explore. But if you need your creations to support your livelihood, your pricing needs to reflect that opportunity to be able to get time for yourself. I hope that was helpful.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Anything else before I wrap? All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of events. Definitely have an amazing Megaplex, and thank you so much for coming to our panel.
Sorry we were late.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. There are a ton of people waiting in that line, right?
It's a little more difficult to get around.
Sorry, I've been driving for a little bit and I have not laid down.